attack on a Michigan church.
Go to church, minding their own business, and you wouldn't think that that would happen here.
Oregon says no to federal troops.
I am so disappointed at the irresponsibility of our federal government.
And showdown over a shutdown.
Both sides are at a stalemate.
Good morning, I'm Cabby McCormick with the CBS World News Roundup. There was a search for answers this morning after an attack on a Mormon church in Grand Blanc, Michigan. At least 4 people were killed and 8 others wounded when an armed gunman drove a car into the crowded church yesterday and began shooting before setting the building on fire. The suspect's been identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford, a Marine veteran of the Iraq War. CBS's Ian Lee is there with the latest.
An active shooter at the church.
What should have been a morning of peaceful prayer in Grand Blanc, Michigan, instead turned into a chaotic and terrifying situation when authorities say they believe a 40-year-old armed man attacked hundreds of parishioners.
He drove his vehicle through the front doors of the church. He then exited his vehicle, firing several rounds at individuals within the church.
According to the ATF, the shooter also appeared to have intentionally set fire to the church, possibly using an accelerant.
I need manpower up here ASAP. I have people trapped in the building.
Grand Blanc's police chief says within 30 seconds of receiving the first calls, officers arrived on scene.
They engaged in gunfire with that particular individual, neutralizing that suspect, and that suspect is no longer with us.
10 gunshot victims were taken to the hospital where 2 died. 2 other bodies were later found inside the church.
Paul Kirby was inside the church when it happened and went to investigate, coming just feet from the gunman. He told CBS Mornings he turned around and ran.
I opened up the door trying to find my family, and that was the scariest moment of my life. Not knowing my family was okay.
There was deadly flooding in Arizona over the weekend. 3 inches of rain fell east of Phoenix in the small city of Globe. At least 2 people were killed. Another person died in Scottsdale. Globe Mayor Al Damaro.
This is a devastating event for all our community, especially the families that lost some family members, but also the business people downtown that lost their livelihood.
It was the area's wettest day in 7 years. Armed federal agents were on the streets of Chicago over the weekend. And authorities in Oregon reacted angrily to President Trump's move to call up 200 National Guard troops for deployment in Portland. The governor says Trump is overstepping his authority.
There is no insurrection, there is no threat to national security, and there is no need for military troops in our major city.
Oregon's Attorney General Dan Rayfield says the state is filing suit.
It is our intent to file a temporary restraining order, and that is something that will pause the action of the president and his subordinates.
Tennessee's governor says additional federal agents are expected in Memphis this week. President Trump will meet with lawmakers later today in an effort to avoid a government shutdown. The deadline is fast approaching, and neither side is showing any willingness to budge. CBS's Nancy Cortez has the latest.
It's a rare high-level sit-down between President Trump and the leaders from both parties, with thousands of government jobs on the line.
My hope is it'll be a serious negotiation.
What Democrats are pushing for is to extend enhanced Obamacare tax credits, which are set to expire at the end of this year. Republicans argue the subsidies are a separate matter that can be dealt with later.
Hopefully there'll be some steps taken that can address the concerns that Democrats have, but you can't do this by Tuesday.
If the government shuts down this week, non-essential services would cease and federal workers would be furloughed. Now, the White House is raising the stakes by threatening to lay off some of those workers.
Time on the roundup, 4 minutes past the hour.
Well, that's today's news. It's 62 degrees in Livermore, California. And I didn't hear any good news, did you? I didn't think so. I guess it's all about perspective. The glass is half full. Well, as always, I want to thank you again for coming along with me on these Dash Cam News adventures. You know the drill. Peace, love, and all that hippie jazz. Bye-bye, everybody.